commercial and no political interest should stand in the way of the truth. That would be the antithesis of all that I stood for in journalism.
That was Harry's greatest achievement, I think, to change British law in favour of press freedom, in favour, give more power to the powerless.
The task of editing is to be anything, it is to edit text. If it's to sign expense sheets, I don't want to do it.
Welcome, everyone. The third annual Truth Tellers Summit is here, and on behalf of me and my co-hosts, Alessandra Galloni, Reuters editor-in-chief, and Karen O'Brien, Vice Chancellor of Durham University, we're thrilled that you're all here. As I watch that film of Harry's remarkable career, I do feel we've never needed him more. Harry once said that freedom of the press is a moral concept, or it is nothing. I know that we're all here today because you too share that view. On Sunday, I went to St. Bride's Church, that secluded jewel on Fleet Street built by Christopher Wren and rebuilt in the 50s when it was bombed in the Blitz. It was journalists who paid to have St. Bride's restored because the church has long served as their spiritual home. And now it's Harry's, with a new plaque in his name that went up a few months ago on a pew near the entrance. In Harry's memoir, My Paper Chase, he describes his childhood experience of accompanying his father on the beach at Rhyl as he talked to some of the shell-shocked survivors of Dunkirk, evacuated to the British coast. The stories of these shattered men were so very different from the jingoistic headlines that Harry'd seen, saying things like, "Bloody marvellous," on the front page of the Daily Mirror. It was that dissonance that set him on his lifelong quest to discern the difference between the truth and the official version. Only 2 years later, when my ambitions to be a newspaper reporter flowered, he wrote, did I understand that Dad was doing what a good reporter would do, asking questions, listening. Since we gathered for Truth Tellers last year, we've arrived at a place that we never expected to be. Truth Tellers has always featured so many journalistic heroes determined to get the story out in the face of enormous opposition or institutional cowardice or threadbare access to funds. And you're going to hear from a lot of them today, many of them in exile, who are forced to report from here. But will the coffee shops of London soon start to fill with American reporters and journalists forced to do their work far from the legal arm of Trump? In his first 100 days as president, Trump has gone for the journalistic jugular. And when the press needs to be at its most strong, the underpinnings are at its most weak. We're seeing the consequences of the twin evils of 2 decades of predatory digital content theft and corporate ownership that is so bedeviled by conflicts of interest. that they're proving how little pressure it takes to throw their media assets under the bus if there's a business deal in jeopardy. That's what was so remarkable about Lord Thompson, owner of the Sunday Times, when Harry was the editor. Many people forget that when Harry fought the Distillers Company in the thalidomide campaign, they were the biggest advertisers in the Sunday Times. It's, unthinkable really today. And his grandson, Thomson Reuters chairman David Thompson, with his CEO Stephen Hasker, keeps that ethos alive at Reuters and has been so generous in paying forward Harry's legacy. Thank you, David, wherever you are over there, for both your support and your integrity. I also want to salute the Postcode Lottery Group, led by Sigrid Van Aken, a true friend of the press who gives her considerable support to multiple truth seekers in the world of serious reporters and journalists. And thank you also to the Sigrid Rousing Foundation, the Ford Foundation, Sir Howard Stringer, and to Andy Lagg, and BBC News and James Harding with his newly relaunched Observer for their committed support. Today's summit reverberates with powerful voices, and I'm honored to be sitting down today with the courageous and luminous Yulia Navalnaya, widow of the slain opposition leader Alexei, and she's now leading that opposition to Putin. To the end of Harry's life, he never stopped playing his lifelong role as the tribal chief of reporters, photojournalists, and news editors, whose incentive is not money, whose passion is not power, but whose vocation is to find out what really happened, who was to blame, and how do we stop it from happening again. This is the core value behind the founding of this summit, to remind the world that truth never gets old. Thank you.